I have mental health issues. And so does a large portion of the world. Things like anxiety and depression force many people into their worst state of being, sometimes pushing them towards the point of no return. Now, why am I telling you all this like you're just my therapist? Because without this series, I wouldn't have been pushed to become a better person. A series that hasn't just affected me, but thousands of other people. A series called A Silent Voice. Created by Ooima Yoshitoki and adapted by Kyoto Animation, both the manga and anime tell the story of a young man attempting to redeem himself from the atrocities he committed to a deaf girl when he was younger, all while these same regrets plague him with mental illness. The series tackles a number of themes, but has personally led me to change my perspective surrounding said issues, whilst also showcasing the struggles of each character perfectly, depending on if you read or watch it. In this video, I'll be covering the anime whilst mentioning the crucial elements skipped out on in the manga. So if that's not your thing, leave! Or instead, you can sit back and relax with a box of tissues to help wipe your sorrows away. The film opens up with the phrase, "a point of the light," while showcasing a tiny, blurry circle containing two figures within it. This is a metaphor for the light at the end of the tunnel, meaning that no matter how much darkness fills your life, if you keep on improving on yourself, things will eventually get better. Yet unfortunately for our main character, it seems as if he's pretty deep into that tunnel. This is Shouya Ishida, a pretty normal 18-year-old who we see quitting his job, selling his things, and withdrawing a large amount from his bank account. Yet one early morning, we see Shouya hand off the cash to his mother before leaving the house and stopping at a bridge. And as he stares at the pristine water with a look of contempt, he stands upon the railing. This is how far down that deep, dark tunnel Shouya has gone, to what he thinks is the point of no return. But what could he have possibly done to be driven to take his own life? 6 years earlier, Shouya was a completely different person. Fun-loving, brave, and in his own words, a daredevil. In fact, he despises boredom, wanting every day to be as fun as the last. Yet, the further he goes to avoid this boredom, the more trouble he winds up in. Even to the point of his friends becoming hesitant to hang around him in favor of doing safer activities, i.e. maturing. I don't know what that is. One day, a new transfer student arrives in class, yet she doesn't react when spoken to, finally introducing herself when tapped on the shoulder. Shouko Nishimiya, a timid young girl who can't hear and so communicates through a notebook. And finally, in Shouya's eyes, he's found the cure to his boredom. Now, I need to address something before the manga readers castrate me in the comments. Pretty much all of this is not really mentioned in the film. The reasons why he does what he does in the eyes of a 12-year-old is explained perfectly in the manga, whereas in the film, it's just a compilation of him doing shit without explanation. And although this does set up the type of kid he was, it makes him look like a more underdeveloped character in this first arc. This is something that happens time and time again in the film. A whole bunch of scenes get swapped around or completely changed, which, to be fair, was necessary to fit the story into just a 2-hour movie. But unfortunately, that means a ton of extra content was skipped out on, crucial or not. So to combat that, I'll be explaining the story through the anime, whilst weaving in that missed crucial content so you can get the full experience. As time goes on, Shouya tests his boundaries with Shouko, even to the point of his teacher telling him off, labeling Shouko as something you just have to deal with. But despite that, Shouko still seems eager to make some friends, even though they find it hard to communicate with her. But in the minds of a bunch of 12-year-old kids, her disability quickly becomes a nuisance for them, even though she's just trying her best to be like them. All she wants to do is be friends with everyone, yet she's labeled a freak and a weirdo, especially by Shouya. This happens a lot in the real world as well. Kids are intrigued by stuff they just don't know a lot about, like disabilities. I mean, I remember being at a footy game when I was little, seeing a dude with one leg with my brother yelling, "Hey dad, he's got one leg." Like, no shit, you little cunt. But there, we were young enough to not know better, really. But here, Shouya is actively picking on her, which soon turns into more than just mere curiosity. And I just want to say, the animation looks beautiful throughout the entire film, being able to set an emotion just through visuals on their own. Through the delays in class, her unusual voice, and the time it takes her to tell things lead to everyone, even the teacher a bit, getting fed up with her. Apart from one student, Miyoko, who volunteers to help her out by learning sign language. But because of this, she's bullied herself by the girls in the class, causing her to leave school entirely. This all leads to not just Shouya, but all his friends joining in on bullying Shouko, bad-mouthing her through the classroom chalkboard, with Shouko replying with, "Thank you." Just doing anything she can to be friends with him. Realizing that she could be the ultimate cure to his boredom, he compares her to how he messes with various animals as the bullying from everyone gets worse and worse and worse until... When even his friends know he's fucked up, the teacher has a word with him, saying, "Whatever happened, it was your responsibility. Don't embarrass me." Though, well, I do understand how you feel. This is another part kind of brushed over in the anime. The teacher is just a massive c***. That afternoon, Shouya and his mates run into Shouko, yet instead of being pissed or upset, all she writes is, "I'm sorry." Wanting some reaction out of her, Shouya steals her notebook, yet is quickly taken aback when she grabs his hand in desperation for some sort of connection with him, as she once again signs to him, asking to be friends. Yet that doesn't faze him, throwing her book in the pond and laughing at her as she tries to retrieve it. But in a complete turn of events,
"We'll see you tomorrow, Shouya. Later."
Shouya suffers a similar fate. One day, the principal makes an announcement stating how Shouko's mum thinks she's being bullied at school, with 8 of Shouko's hearing aids suddenly disappearing, the damages amounting to 1.7 million yen. As all these emotions run through Shouya's head, his teacher confronts him.
"We all know that it's you. I told you to stand up!"
Yes, sir.
With each of Shouya's friends defending themselves and pushing all the blame onto him. Yet as he confronts each of them, everything comes crashing down.
I would never do anything like that. How could you? How could you say something like that?
It's clear now that no one is on Shouya's side anymore, now that the damage has been realized, resulting in the bullying being turned onto him. The manga being a little more extreme with it, with even his shoes being stolen in the same way Shouko's hearing aids went missing, with his teacher again blaming all of this on him, saying that what happens is your responsibility. This sense of judgment being seen in everyone who turned on him, with Shouya only realizing his mistakes as Shouko's mum rips out his mum's earring, just like how he did to Shouko's hearing aids. This is karma at its most extreme, and despite the fact that everyone either joined in or were bystanders to the bullying, Shouya was forced to shoulder the blame just to save their own asses. This all leads to Shouya developing a deep hatred for Shouko, with it reaching a climax as he sees her cleaning his desk. The two begin fighting, Shouya revealing his hatred while Shouko says, "I'm doing the best I can." As much as I hate English dubs in anime, the voice acting for Shouko is fucking fantastic here, being voiced by an actual deaf person. By the way, the Japanese voice actor isn't deaf, which, despite how real it sounds, is a little fucked up depending on how you view depictions of disabilities. As it's announced that Shouko has transferred schools, Shouya realizes why she was cleaning his desk. Messages of hatred were written all over it, with Shouko wiped off for him every single day. That was the extent that Shouko's bullying reached, and the manga deals with it a lot harsher than the anime, which I think produces a more impactful result. But even so, both mediums do a fantastic job of displaying bullying, especially in young kids, showcasing how both sides of a story feel in an extremely realistic way. Jumping to the present day, we see Shouya anxiously enter a sign language class before turning around to see Shouko. Yet, as he says hello, it's clear that she remembers him, as a mix of emotions swarm her, the manga clarifying her hatred for him as she runs away. And even Shouya expected this to happen. I mean, he was the reason for her suffering way back when. But even so, her kind nature stops her from running. after seeing him eat shit, asking Shouya why. He then proceeds to pull out her notebook, the same notebook from elementary school, as he signs to her, wanting to apologize. Surprised at the fact that he even knows sign language, they continue talking. Yet as they continue, it's clear that Shouya despises what he did to her back then, especially evident in the manga, saying how he hates himself and isn't a good person, being such scum that not even he has a right to die. Yet as he reveals his desire to change and finally understand her,
Whoa, what did I just say?
he becomes flustered. But as he looks towards Shouko once again, he no longer wants to just apologize and disappear like before, but instead,
I wanted to ask if we could be friends. Would that be okay?
this is where we see an instance of the anime skipping out on some of the manga, differing the timeline of the two mediums pretty drastically, as we actually see Shouya and Shouko feeding the fish at the nearby bridge, something she does every single Tuesday. But as Shouya struggles to speak with her, Shouko's mother Yaeko snatches her away, chucking her old notebook into the river. And as she chases after it, Shouya follows. Thankfully, all is well and Shouko's mum walks her away, as Shouya screams out, "I really regret what I did back then." But as silence falls, he's met with a deserved slap by Yaeko, as he then walks home, still unsure if he's even deserving of Shouko's friendship. It's the next day, where Shouya stopped himself from committing suicide, yet the thought still lingers in his otherwise empty room. As Shouya's mum, Miyako, serves breakfast to him and his faceless sister's daughter, Maria, she thanks Shouya happily for the money he owed her for replacing Shouko's hearing aids, until she asks him a question.
Why would you want to kill yourself?
But he's not even given a chance to gather his thoughts, as
I knew something was going on with you!
Miyako confronts him about everything. His oddly clean room, all of his stuff missing, that ominous calendar. Shouya has no way of denying it. And so she says she'll torch for money if he dies. All of that money he owes will just go to waste. All of the suffering he caused others will just amount to nothing. Shouya begs and begs her to stop, saying how he's not going to do it, swearing on it. Yet the money burns on accident. All is well either way. After all, who wants to spend money you saved up in order to die anyways? It's clear that the reason for Shouya's suicidal thoughts was his regret and guilt, as well as his social isolation. His former friends spreading rumors about him, starting in middle school, with Shouya seeing this as some sort of divine punishment, not deserving any friends. And with this, Shouya has developed some extreme social anxiety, shown through the X. The X can be described as Shouya's attempt to block out all of his fears and anxieties in social situations, as since he's convinced himself that he doesn't deserve friendship, he finds it hard to look people in the eye. And in return, this has caused Shouya to envision himself as a loser, only hearing or even imagining insults thrown at him by his peers. This has caused Shouya to become extremely bitter towards everyone around him, hating everyone but hating himself the most for thinking that way, showing us that he has changed but not in the healthiest of ways. I love this aspect in the series. The fact that even though he recognizes and regrets the horrible things he's done, yet still thinks of himself as above certain people, gives him so much more room for change, which is something the anime definitely missed out on. As Tuesday rolls around, we see Shouya arrive at school, only to witness someone being bullied for their bite. And at first, all he is just a bystander, not wanting to get involved, exactly like how his friends were before. And so he intervenes, wanting to change something about himself. If not for himself, then for Shouko at least. Yet now, he doesn't have a bite. And so, still not being sure if he has a right to, he takes it as a sign to not see Shouko at the pond again. I mean, it's Japan, there's definitely some way to travel there, until he stumbles upon a free bread flyer. Great, now he can feed the fishies with Shouko. Except once he arrives there, he's instead greeted with what looks like a young boy. And as he nervously asks to see Shouko, they ask,
I mean, are you actually a friend of hers?
Thought so.
This then gets Shouya thinking, what is a friend anyway? When can you exactly call someone a friend? When does it start?
What the?
Oh, found him! Hey, you! Over here! Look, check it out!
This is where, wait, Does he have jiggle physics? Oh, well that must make it an ecchi. How could I recommend this to non-anime fans now? Just from wanting to change and acting upon it, Shouya was able to get his bike back, resulting in a new connection, Tomohiro, someone in the same lonesome boat as Shouya. With this, their initially one-sided friendship starts to bloom, riding their bikes together and even hanging out after school. But even so, just the meaning of friendship troubles Shouya, and so he asks Tomohiro, responding with, I think friendship is something deeper than words or logic. Shouya believes he doesn't have the right to speak to Shouko, but sometimes there is no right or wrong towards friendship. It's something that just is. Yet, even with this slight spark and confidence,
She's not here.
he's shut down once again when he tries to see Shouko. As the same boy from before says, if you're here just to satisfy yourself, you should leave.
Listen, boy. What's your problem?
But this doesn't stop Tomohiro from attempting to help out Shouya, his overly protective nature causing a scene, tempting Shouya to run away. Yet he's soon followed by Shouko. Being at the bridge, their conversation is overseen by the boy and Tomohiro. Shouya says how he wasn't sure if he had the right to see her after the way he treated her way back when, and that he couldn't figure out whether they were friends or not, and much to the boy's disappointment, she was thinking the same thing. I mean, would you be so open to bringing your previous tormentor into your life? The next day, he's kicked off his bike by the same boy from before, Yuzuru, as he declares Shouko to be his girlfriend. And believing this, Shouya just apologizes and rides off, reluctantly accepting it. Things only get worse as he arrives at school with all eyes on him, as he finds out about a picture showing him jumping off that bridge from before, resulting in a suspension. Yet, despite his ban from leaving his house, he's forced to pick up Maria from daycare, bumping into a dirtied up Yuzuru along the way. They get to talking, and Yuzuru admits that they were actually the one who posted that photo of him online, yet instead of getting mad, he just says that he brought it upon himself. Again, this idea that he doesn't deserve anything after what he's done showing up again. As Shouya says his goodbyes, Yuzuru faints, prompting Shouya to take him back home with him, feeding him and even giving him a place to stay. But as the night grows old, Shouya and his mum hear knocking on their door, being greeted with Shouko's mother, stating how Shouko's run away from home. Now, I need to explain something. Yuzuru is not a dude, it's Shouko's younger sister. I mean, obviously, her name is Yuzuru, and she looks like a girl. I'm sorry to ruin your femboy dream. Ever since she was young, Yuzuru had been trying to protect Shouko, even cutting her hair short so their mum wouldn't cut Shouko's. Their relationship with her mother only worsening as she ditches school to take pictures of deceased animals, plastering them all over their walls. And rightfully so, she despises anyone who bullies Shouko, especially Shouya, which is why she uploaded that picture of him to try and push Shouko away from him. Yet it backfires completely as this angers Shouko, confronting her about it, but in the process making Yuzuru cry, tempting her to run away. And this is why Shouya found Yuzuru all by herself, which over time has prompted Shouko to go look for her. And so off both Shouya and Yuzuru go, screaming out her name for some reason. I mean, she can't fucking hear it. Yet as all seems futile, Yuzuru confronts him on why he's so invested in helping Shouko, asking if his guilt keeps him going and if he has some weird obligation to do so. To which Shouya actually agrees, saying how when he saw Shouko, all those feelings of regret and guilt hit him again, and that's why he didn't give up on life. That despite how stupid it sounds, as long as I have that life, I want to dedicate it to her. They eventually find Shouko and meet up with Yeiko, with her confronting Shouya, saying how he can't erase the pain he's caused her, but Shouya himself is well aware of this fact. This is what I love about Shouya's character. He is so complex, and I wish that was shown more in the anime, because in the film, this scene doesn't exist. Instead, it's a mix of this scene, and that scene, which made Shouya seem more like a sad sack than this intricate character. And it's the same for Shouko too. Also this scene where Tomohiro and Shouya found out Yuzuru is a girl. But in the anime it's a lot more tame. Some while later, at their usual meeting spot, Shouya attempts to ask Shouko for her email in his own awkward way. Yet through this, Shouko asks for Miyoko's address because she was hurt because of me. Back then, even Shouko knew Miyoko got bad-mouthed because of her, yet Shouya just assumed she couldn't understand why she left because of her disability. But now that he's aware of this, he plans to track down Miyoko, with the only person who might know being Miki, the same girl from 6th grade who was just a bystander to Shouko and even Shouya's bullying. Yet not even she has Miyoko's contacts, but an old friend told her that she was attending the same academy. And so they have their answer, with Shouko and Shouya setting off to find her. Again, just look how beautifully animated the scene is, with the light shining down, showing the hope that is starting to emerge as they arrive at their destination. Thankfully, it doesn't take long to find Miyoko stumbling into her on an escalator. As they get to talking, it's clear that Miyoko deeply regrets just kind of disappearing on Shouko, something Shouya sees as his fault. And so, seeing their smiles, he stumbles away, and this is where once again, the manga and the anime take two completely different paths. In the manga, they don't find her. They're all boohoo. Shouya finds her the next day, brings the two together, then eventually he, Tomohiro, Miyoko, and Shouko hang out and do oh so much fun stuff. Oh, and did I mention a crucial side plot where Tomohiro wants to make a movie, and that it brings the characters together and adds so much to them all?
If I wanted to watch him masturbate, I would have peeped in his bedroom at night.
Although all this isn't necessary to the main plot, all this content adds to the growth of every character. There's also another scene where Shouko asks Shouya if he wants to see anyone from elementary school, sparking him to remember all the pain inflicted onto him by his old friends. Yet as she pushes on, Shouya snaps, showing us that he's still got a lot to do in order to be freed from his regret. Switching back to the movie, we see Shouya's left for a walk, where he bumps into Naoka, the same old friend Miki mentioned earlier from elementary school, who, just like the others, was just a bystander or even contributed to the bullying of Shouko, Shouya, and even Miyoko. But at the same time, she was also one of Shouya's closest friends, sharing a bond he didn't have with any other girl. With Shouya dazed and confused, she hands him a coupon for a cafe? Okay. And yes, unfortunately, she's not actually a furry. And so Shouya thinks back to that question he asked Shouko. Is there anyone you want to see? Maybe Naoka's changed in the same way Shouya has. Maybe she could even be friends with Shouko now. And so both Tomohiro and Shouya go to the cat cafe. Yet Naoka's nowhere to be seen, hiding from the two, surprised that Shouya even came. So they just head off. But not before grabbing a little cat pouch for Shouko. Yet handing it off to Yuzuru. That night we see Shouko in a state of despair. It's clear now that Shouko's hearing is only going to get worse, losing hearing in one ear completely, making her feel even worse about her disability. The next day, Naoka unexpectedly bombards Shouya like nothing ever happened between the two, with Shouya becoming flustered. But as Naoka spots and badmouths Shouko in the distance, she's stopped by him, as she realizes just how much he's changed. Running over to her, Naoka snatches Shouko's remaining hearing aid, expecting it to be just like before. But Shouya is not the same anymore, and so seeing this, Naoka laughs at the fact that he's friends with the girl he used to bully, belittling him for trying to make amends, calling it fake friendship. All the while, Shouko stands there, unable to understand what's being said. And this frustrates her, wanting to know what was just said, but with Shouya not wanting to tell her, not wanting to hurt her. So all she does is smile, just like always. But it seems like Shouko's not the only one saddened by this situation. Naoka is not a good person. In fact, just with one look, you can tell that she's probably the meanest in the entire series. Like, she even believes the whole reason Shouya was ostracized was because of Shouko, saying how she stole the time taken from them. But, although fucked up, she does have at least some reasoning for the things that she does. Unlike Miki. Some while later, after being told by Yuzuru to meet at the bridge for some bread, he's instead surprised to see Shouko wearing her hair up in a ponytail, exposing her remaining hearing aid, doing so to gain some more confidence in herself. Yet this confidence is only short-lived, as Shouya is taken aback when she tries her hand at speaking, not being able to understand her properly as she talks. This is when she asks him,
"Is my voice weird?"
Yeah.
It's clear that in no way did he mean to hurt her here. It's just something he's not used to hearing. Does that make his answer any better? No. He's a fucking idiot. But it's not like just because he's changed means he'll immediately understand everything about Shouko. All he can do is try. As he awkwardly rides away, he's quickly stopped by Shouko, handing him a gift. Yet he's puzzled as to what they even are. But before he can figure it out, an anxious Shouko stands idle, wanting to say something. Despite her confession, Shouya just can't understand her again, resulting in even more miscommunication, something she's been struggling with her entire life. But at the same time, this really indicates just how much Shouko's perception of Shouya has changed, to the point where she even loves him now. The next day, after seeing Miki with a new hairstyle, Shouya thinks back to Shouko with her new hair, still confused on why she changed it. And yes, men really are that dense.
Well, you're straight?
I'm straight, IRL.
It's through this interaction that the X slips off her, his anxiety finally starting to ease a little. Seeing this in another character with random intrigue to Shouya, Satoshi. Satoshi is one of my favorite characters in the entire story, but not in the anime. In the manga, all of his actions have a reason to be, which are slowly revealed over the course of the story. But in the anime, none of this is mentioned, so he just feels like a replaceable side character, only there for a reason to make Shouya feel slightly better about his situation, instead of being his own character with his own feelings. This scene is also where we hear mention of Tomokido's film, with Satoshi wanting to help to get closer to Shouya. All of this feeling like a nostalgic memory in the anime. That afternoon, we see everyone at the bridge, all except Shouko, still feeling embarrassed about the other day. And so Yuzuru suggests that he invite her out somewhere, and so he does, meeting at the amusement park with the rest of the group. I mean, why would you invite a girl out by yourself? That's too scary for me. But to show your surprise, Naoka shows up, being invited by Miki. Although it's clear Naoka's here just to get closer to Shouya, with Miki praising herself for teaching Shouko all sorts of things every day back in elementary school. While Shouya discovers that Miyako and Naoka are actually kind of friends now. But even so, despite the initial awkwardness, as they all get to the rides and muck around with each other, a strangely familiar feeling starts to brew within Shouya. All the fun he's having with everyone makes him forget his anxieties and paranoia. This feeling of friendship finally revealing itself, because who cares about what happened before? It's all in the past now. Kazuki was yet again another childhood friend that turned on him unexpectedly. The same can be said for another friend, Keisuke. And here Kazuki is years later, all due to Naoka's meddling, causing Shouya to once again block them out. Yet he recognizes that she's doing the exact same thing he's doing with Shouko, not really having a right to get mad, and so he becomes depressed. I really liked this scene. It does a great job showing how being reminded of a regretful and haunting past can immediately change your mood, something I can personally say does a great job of replicating. As the two sit alone, Naoka once again blames all of Shouya's pain on Shouko, saying that if Shouko hadn't shown up, we all would have been happy. Blaming Shouko for breaking his friend group apart and making things awkward between her and Miyoko. This then prompts Naoka to drag Shouko, along with Yuzuru's camera, onto a Ferris wheel to speak with her, just the two of them alone. As Shouko hops off the Ferris wheel, Shouya notices a slap mark on her cheek, and so he confronts Naoka, furious with her for resorting to violence, with Naoka saying that it's got nothing to do with him. Yet Shouya claims otherwise, just wanting to protect Shouko, with Naoka enraged at this claim. The whole group witnessing the argument, including Shouko, with the entire encounter pushing Shouya further away from everyone. Sometime later, Yuzuru pays a visit to Shouya, saying how her camera was actually recording the entire Ferris wheel ride with Shouko and Naoka, and so they watched the video, unfortunately with no Raid Shadow Legends sponsorship ad.
I hate you.
It's clear from the very start that Naoka has no intention of apologizing to Shouko, stating how they both didn't understand each other in elementary school, with Shouko continuously trying to communicate with her, irritating Naoka in the process. Yet she proposes that they could coexist peacefully despite obviously hating each other. But
you're wrong. I don't hate you. I hate myself.
Shouko doesn't actually hate her, pissing off Naoka as she assumes she has no intention of being real with her, which in some sense is true. Shouko has always put on a fake smile in order to please people. Even in Yuzuru's own words, she would never speak up even if something were to happen to her. But this reinforces Shouya's desire to help her, saying, I want her to like herself. Now in the manga, it's clear that Shouko does want to put in an effort to understand Naoka's point of view, as she writes out a letter to her likely in response to what she said on the Ferris wheel. Somewhat later, Shouya tells Satoshi about the recording and what Naoka did to Shouko, Satoshi replying how Miki told him Shouko used to get bullied, with him wondering why exactly someone would do that. And it all makes him look like the biggest fucking idiot, in comparison with the manga at least. This scene takes place in the 5th volume, about halfway through, with the previous half of the volume appearing fucking nowhere. This is because a lot of it was just them preparing for Tomohiro's movie about his big friend.
Yes, this man is my big friend.
something that is seen nowhere in the film. It even includes Shouya going back to elementary school for the movie, showcasing how his teacher is still the same prick as before. Yet this content added so much to Satoshi's character, and so cutting that out just leaves him soulless. You see, Satoshi himself was bullied when he was younger, now not being able to stand seeing or even hearing bullying, even throwing water on Shouya's old teacher when he was being antagonizing to him. This leads us up to the same scene, yet here we see Satoshi questioning Shouya about Shouko's bullying even more, which in return makes Shouya even more paranoid about him finding out about what he's done in the past. But in the anime, he's just like, Shouko has bad hearing. Maybe that's why she gets bullied. Like, no fucking shit, you dumb cunt. Letting his paranoia get the best of him, Shouya asks Miki if she's told anyone about the old him, prompting her to loudly detest this, making sure everyone can hear their conversation. As if she's above him, she questions if he's really changed, saying how he's the same awful person he once was. And as Tomohiro and Satoshi come over, she breaks the truth to them, saying how Shouya was the one behind all of Shouko's bullying. With all ears on them, Miki detests the fact that she badmouthed Shouko as well, trying to retain her good girl act, as she claims that she tried to stop him but Shouya never listened, all of this being a lie. And so, sick to his stomach, Shouya runs away, his thoughts getting the best of him, wishing he could go someplace where there isn't a single soul who knows me. Do you see now why I hate Miki so fucking much? Her entire spiel was just a way to make her seem like the victim, whether she knew it or not. She wasn't thinking about Shouko at all. She puts on the same self-victimizing act the entire story, all to seem like a good person in the eyes of her peers. Later on, she even compares the same bullying Miyako and Shouko went through to when Shouya confronted her in elementary school. What? You got bullied for being deaf in school? Well, he said I was mean, so I kind of understand how you feel. Heading to the bridge, Shouya meets up with Miyako, Yuzuru, and Shouko just like any other Tuesday, still on edge about the earlier confrontation. Yet, to his surprise, everyone else arrives at the bridge shortly after. Here, we see Miki give a half-assed apology, only really doing so because that's what Satoshi told her to do, knowing now about Shouya's regret for what he did. Yet Miki still lectures Shouya, saying how he's the one who started it, with Naoka immediately calling her out for this, knowing that they both badmouthed Shouko and did nothing to stop the bullying. Through this, we see Miki's persona slide off again, calling Tomohiro dirty as he tries to calm her down. Damn! What the fuck did he do? But the arguments are then cut off by Shouya, blaming himself for all of this to happen as he points out everyone's flaws. Naoka, you're not much different from Miki. Gunk is still Gunk. Stop pretending you care, Miyako. We all know how quick you are to run. Miki, you disgust me from the very bottom of my heart. Tomohiro, stop saying you're on my side when you barely know me. This causes everyone to become upset and leave, with even Naoka saying that she's sick of herself, as Satoshi punches Shouya in the face for saying such awful things, thinking that he was better than that. This forces Shouya into putting up that barrier once again, with even Shouko, despite her hearing, knowing that something terrible just happened. This scene in both the anime and manga is incredible. It did a great job of showing Shouya's breaking point, despite whether he meant it or not. Stuff like this just comes out when you're at your breaking point. He knows he's done something horrible, which in return pushes him back down the hole he'd been climbing out of. It also does a great job of showing Shouko's view in all of this, not knowing what could have been said, having to be told by Yuzuru later on. That night, we see Yuzuru reading Shouko's old notebook before being interrupted by her grandma. As they get to talking, she reveals how worried she is about Yuzuru, always focusing on Shouko instead of herself. What's more important about this scene is the obvious love Yuzuru has for her grandma, seeing her as much more kind and loving than her mother, something she cherishes in her life. With things still tense between everyone, Shouya heads to the bridge to try and cheer Shouko up, yet is greeted by no one. But as he looks out, he sees Yuzuru in her school uniform, crying. Unable to bring himself to say anything, he sits back down before being surprised by Yuzuru, just like nothing ever happened. But before they can properly chat, Yuzuru gets a message from Shouko, prompting her to leave, with Shouya saying he'll walk her, now worried about her as he saw her crying earlier. So he tags along, walking Yuzuru to
See ya.
her grandma's funeral. Inviting him inside for some support, we see a memorial for their grandma, with everyone mourning in their own ways, Yaeko hiding her tears from everyone. Later on, Yuzuru finds a letter written to her by her grandma before she passed away, in which she tries to paint their mother in a brighter light, saying how she may come off as cold, but in reality, she was just thinking of things in her own way, wanting Shouko to get stronger on her own, but applying it to herself as well. The letter reading, so even today, she's probably fighting back her tears, the same way you hid your tears earlier, Yuzu. Not being able to stand being compared to her, Yuzuru scrunches the letter up and storms off, as her mother walks right by her. But Yako isn't actually a bad person. You see, when Shouko was 3, her disability was discovered, with her father immediately asking for a divorce, blaming it all on Yako. Her father's parents go on to say that she deceived and hid her disability from them, even saying that this was karma from a past life, going on like it was the end of the world that Shouko was deaf, even to the point of saying, "We don't want anyone like that in our family." This would crush anyone normally, but thankfully the girl's grandma was there to help, having to be the emotional support whilst Yako worked in order to give the girl some sort of normal life. Even so, this made her hide away her emotions, wanting to look stronger for Shouko, but now it seems as if even she wants to change. Why wasn't this in the film? Like, it literally showed us how much Yako has been through for Shouko and Yuzuru. Plus, it's such an impactful scene, showing the struggles of a single mother trying to support her kids in a tough situation. Wanting to cheer Shouko up, Shouya decides to take her on a little day out. Yet it's clear right away that the two are feeling disconnected, with Shouko looking somber as the same thought runs through Shouya's head repeatedly. Climbing over the Death Star, Shouya slips over, with Shouko running to his aid. Yet as he lifts his head, Shouko apologizes, saying how nothing good comes from being around her and how he'll just be miserable whenever he's with her. Again, blaming herself for everything bad that's ever happened to anyone around her. Despite how much she's grown as a person over the past few months, she still thinks that all she does is bring harm to people, not being able to recognize her growth. And Shouya feels the exact same, with him saying how there's no going back to the way things were. But even so, we see him trying his best to cheer Shouko up, hanging out as he acts overly happy around her to prove her wrong. And things seem to be going well. Shouya's even invited over to their house to make their mother's birthday cake, and despite thinking she was gonna kill him, everything turned out fine, even being invited to see some fireworks, with Yako mentioning how she submitted one of Yuzuru's photos to a competition. At said fireworks, we see the group cheerfully hanging out, but as they stop, Shouya and Shouko are left alone, talking as if everything's alright, with Shouya just happy to see her smiling. Yet as the fireworks start up again, Shouko leaves, saying how she needs to go study, with the other two returning shortly after, as Yuzuru gets Shouya to grab her camera. And so, off he goes, walking down the street, climbing up the stairs, and making it to their apartment. But as he finds Yuzuru's camera, he notices Shouko on their balcony, and as he gets closer, she stands up upon the railing. As Shouya realizes what's happening, racing towards her, screaming out her name in desperation. Thankfully, he's able to stop her, holding on to Shouko for dear life. As he struggles to pull her up, Shouya prays to God, saying, "Grant me just one more ounce of strength. I won't run from the bad stuff. Starting tomorrow, I'll look everyone in the face. Starting tomorrow, I'll listen to everyone's voices. Starting tomorrow, I'll do things right. If I'm not even allowed to have that tomorrow, take me instead." That's probably today.
It's cold. It's warm.
It's been 2 days since Shouya fell. The impact from before knocked him out, being saved by a random passerby, yet he still hasn't even opened his eyes. As Yuzuru spots Miyako at the hospital, the two get to talking but are quickly interrupted by Yako. Expecting some sort of confrontation, Miyako is taken aback when Yako gets on her knees and apologizes, with Yuzuru following, telling her about what actually happened that night. And outside, things aren't much better.
Don't you dare try to play the victim!
As we witness Naoka beating Shouko up, pissed that it was Shouya in hospital instead of her, saying how she didn't even think about how we felt and decided the best idea was to jump, calling her the most selfish person
I know! hell
protecting
are you?
Shouko for 2 exchange punches, and eventually we see Miyako break up the fight. That night, we see Yuzuru taking down all the photos of dead animals scattered across the walls, as she calls them meaningless, saying that she thought seeing these would change her mind about wanting to die. As we cut to Yuzuru and Shouko when all the bullying was occurring, as a soaked and distraught Shouko signs out, "I want to die." For the entire story, especially in elementary school, Shouko has retained the smile she puts on to avoid annoying her peers, so it really felt like a shock when I read those 4 words, putting into perspective even more how much the bullying had affected Shouko. The next day, as she takes out her photos, Yuzuru sees Shouko, now more determined than ever to change her ways, as we switch to the hospital, where we see Tomohiro witness Naoka shutting Shouko out of Shouya's room. Unable to open the door, the two go sit down somewhere, with Shouko saying how she's destroyed what Shouya worked hard to create, thinking back to what happened on the bridge. Comforting her, Tomohiro says that Shouya was kind enough to accept someone like him, and how he now knows what it's like to have a true friend, with Shouko responding with, "I want to restore what I destroyed." This is where the manga strays heavily away from the anime again, giving certain characters some more backstory as they try to deal with all this chaos. None of this being seen in the anime, of course. It showed us Miyako's desire to not run away from her problems anymore and to face them head on. It showed us just how much Shitoshi's bullying had affected him, wanting to be friends with Shouya to help normalize his obsessions with getting back at his tormentors. It showed us why Naoka likes Shouya so much and how she believes Shouko was trying to take him away from her. It showed us Miki being a bitch, being shit-talked by her classmates for wanting to make 1,000 paper cranes for Shouya. Not sure why paper cranes, but alright. But even scenes like where Miyako met Shouko for the first time, being unable to bring herself to say anything to her really. This very impactful scene being replaced by Shouko crying at her feet, which isn't necessarily bad either. As time goes on, we see Shouko trying to make things right between her and Naoka, wanting to understand her point of view. Then we return to that fateful night. Shouko running down the stairs, coming face to face with Shouya's savers, Kazuki and Keisuke, confused as we actually see what Shouko hears in her frantic state. Then we switch to a life in which Shouko wasn't bullied, one where she can hear and one where she's friends with everyone. But unfortunately, it doesn't last long, as Shouya's words appear, speaking to Shouko directly. "Nishimiya, I found you. How are you doing? You know, this is kind of weird, huh? I wanted to die. Oh, Tuesday will be over soon. Later, Nishimiya." Waking up in a panic, Shouko frantically sprints to the bridge as she recalls all the things Shouya's done for her in the last year, desperately hoping that Shouya would be there, waiting for her safe and sound. In a state of confusion, not knowing whether Shouko was safe or not, Shouya leaves the hospital and heads straight for the bridge, only to see nothing. That is until he grips the railing, as the two catch each other's eyes. In disbelief, Shouko pokes Shouya, confirming that it really is him. This all leads Shouya to apologize to her for everything he did to her when they were kids, saying how even now he was being selfish, focusing on himself, believing that to contribute to her suicide attempt. But Shouko denies all of this, blaming herself for not changing, thinking that everything was all her fault, wanting to just disappear. Comforting her, Shouya says how he thought the same way once before, saying how, "I've realized something. Even though some things can make life difficult sometimes, it doesn't mean they're worth dying over." As he asks her to help teach him how to live, as he puts her hands into the sign for friendship, as Shouko promises to help him with that. Two weeks now have passed since he fell, and Shouya finally makes it out of hospital, greeting Maria, happy to see that he's alive. Seeing Naoka peeking around the corner. As his mum mentions how she had been looking after him, Shouya goes to speak to Naoka, but before he can really get a word out, she tells him that Kazuki and Keisuke were the ones who saved him that night, with Shouya saying thank you to her as she heads off. With Shouya returning home, he's greeted with his mum giving Yaeko a haircut, showing us how they've been able to reconcile through all this chaos. Heading upstairs, he sees Yuzuru Andrew already waiting for him, showing how she was able to win that photo competition. This time the photo not including a deceased animal, which could represent how the impact of something won't always be absent, with a flourishing greenery surrounding it, saying how you still have to accept it as a part of your life and move on. And yes, I am a philosopher.
Green. Green is good.
Finally, Shouya decides to go to school, which just so happens to be the day of their festival, and so he prepares himself, ready to look everyone in the face and listen to their voices, finding out what Shoko's present was actually for as well, eventually meeting her at the gates and heading on in. Yet as he walks along, all he hears is people gossiping about him, crumbling down and revealing to Shouko how he has trouble looking people in the eyes. Don't worry, man, it could be worse. You could have blue eyes. So Shouko pulls him to his class, but as he opens the door,
Shouya's back at school! Are you okay now?
he freaks out, heading to the bathroom in a panic. As he has a panic attack, Tomohiro greets him at the door, but as he opens it, Shouya just can't look him in the eye, too guilty about what happened at the bridge. But in Tomohiro's eyes, he's just happy to see his best friend again. You all know what this looks like. Helping Shouya out of the bathroom, both of them bump into the rest of the group, with Shouya immediately looking back at the ground. Yet as Miki pulls out the paper cranes, genuinely distraught as they weren't able to finish them all, he looks her in the eye, thankful for anything, as Satoshi apologizes to him for punching him, as he looks him too in the eye. Both Miyako and Naoka then arrive, Shouya looking at them directly as well, with Naoka even being friendly with Shouko. But then they go check out the festival. X is still covering strangers' faces as Shouya uncovers his ears, revealing all the good and bad he promised to acknowledge until finally. The X's all come off, revealing a sea of people, that of which Shouya can finally look in the eye. And looking around, he embraces everything and everyone around him. As he cries tears of joy, he reflects on all the people who have had some sort of impact on him, the same tunnel from the start of the film appearing again. As he finally finds the light at the end of the tunnel. This is where the film ends, cutting out around half of the final volume's content, none of which is necessarily vital to the story, but still adds to it nonetheless. As time goes on, we see Shouya finally speaking to a bunch of new faces, as well as Tomohiro's film at a competition, that of which the judges did not like, to say the least, with the group all hanging out as friends as all of their desired careers are revealed, Shouya being the only one really without one. Even Shouko has one, to be a hairdresser in Tokyo, likely inspired by Miyako, showing us how she's changed, as before she would have just stayed close to home. Yet this scares Shouya, trying to stop her any way he can, as he obviously doesn't want to be without her, but eventually he comes around to the idea, supporting her, knowing that it's for the best and wants her to be happy and follow her dreams, with Shouya eventually finding a similar path in life, to take over his mum's salon. Eventually, sometime after they graduate and Shouko moves away, they come to their coming of age ceremony in their town, with the whole group meeting up before going to their respective elementary school groups. As Shouya sees Keisuke enter the room, he thinks about when he was younger, but changes his perspective quickly. Back in middle school, I imagined a boring future awaiting me, but now, even that future looks bright to me. Whatever is on the other side of this door is probably from my painful past, but there's more than that. There are possibilities, and I can open these doors at any time, as long as I am alive. As the pair nervously stand by the entrance, the two hold each other's hands as they walk through the door that held them in for so long. And that is the story of A Silent Voice, mostly. In this video, I covered all of the anime and the most important parts that were skipped out on in the manga. But even so, that left out so much content from the manga that just wouldn't make much sense if I tried to cover it in the anime's timeline. But in return, I also didn't want to speak about that stuff just because you could still read the manga or even watch the anime and still gain something for yourself. So, which is better, the manga or the anime? The manga. And a lot of you are probably thinking, well, why didn't you go off the manga stories then? And it's simple, really. Too much effort. And do you really want to be looking at mostly pictures of shit for an hour? I know you're all too lazy to do that, but despite believing that the manga is superior to the anime, I still love them both equally. That's because they capture two different vibes to the story, the anime being more somber, but the manga just feeling more realistic. They're both masterpieces in their own ways, and a lot of people seem to at least somewhat agree. Unless you're this guy. I thought this would be the greatest thing since internet porn. What? You get some good feels out of it, and then it ends.
Mango.
But personally, I still like the manga more. This is just because of how much deeper it goes into every single character and all of their motives. Why did Satoshi even want to be his friend in the first place? Because he saw himself as weird, but Shouya even weirder, thinking that he'd look and feel more normal around him. Why was Tomohiro so eager to hang out with almost a stranger? Because he wanted to take the opportunity to make a friend after years of loneliness. Why is Miki such a cunt? I don't know, she's still just a horrible person in the manga as well. Every character, except Miki, is explained much more thoroughly in the manga, helping the viewer build a strong connection with each of them, allowing us to empathize with them as if they were real human beings. But in an anime, it's just kind of bullying is bad. Brave statements only on this channel. That's not to say it's every character, honestly. Like Shouya, Yuzuru, and Shouko are still fantastic characters in the anime, but it's that cut content that would have added to all of the side characters that would have made the anime even better than what it already is. Oh, speaking about the cut content, there's a lot of it. So much so that once I got halfway through the script, I wondered if it was even possible to make this video. To be fair, the majority of the cut content isn't necessarily needed for the main plot to progress, and the anime still does an incredible job with how it was adapted, seeing how it's only a 2-hour film and the manga is 7 volumes. Having it be a film is gonna be more emotionally impactful than it being a 12-episode anime. But even so, stuff like Tomohiro's film contest would have been great to see in the anime, further developing their individual personalities, or even the part where we see what turned Shouko's mother into such a cold, emotionless person. It was such an impactful moment in the series that really put into perspective what she's been through. Everything that I'm saying is making the anime look like a pile of dog shit. Like, in a sense, it kind of failed at being an adaptation, skipping and changing content, missing character development and arcs that create an even more cohesive story. Like, did the anime do anything right? Well, it certainly succeeded at creating an equally beautiful story. Although I could go on and on about all the missing content in the anime, it makes up for all of that with just how well they told the overall story, replacing scenes in the manga with more visual storytelling, gorgeous animation that sets the tone for a scene, and its soundtrack. Oh my fucking god, the soundtrack. It is such an incredible looking and feeling anime, and although the manga still does it better, the way the film depicts all the themes like depression, anxiety, suicide, bullying is done in the best way in any type of TV show or movie, which is why it's a masterpiece, even when compared to the manga. Yes, it missed and skipped stuff, but name another anime that deals with all these themes in a better way. Fuck are you gonna say? School Days? Both the anime and manga are fantastic in their own ways, and personally, both mediums feel so realistic to me, to the point where I and many others can see themselves in every character, empathizing with their situations, but also using that to change my own life. Now, a warning before I start talking, this is going to get personal. Not in any way am I comparing my own situations to Shouko's or even Shouya's, but I do relate to how they feel massively. Their feelings of depression, anxiety, regret, guilt, even suicide are things I and many others have experienced in the past. Each and every time I reread or rewatch this series, I find myself more and more attached to both Shouya and Shouko, with reasons for this varying. Shouko, for a lot of his story, hates herself. She thinks all she does is ruin everything, always causing grief to fall upon others, but in reality, she just wants to fit in. Now, I don't have a disability and I haven't really been bullied to her extent before, but this desire to fit in is something that's been a part of my life before. The same can be said for her self-hatred. Just like Shouko, I used to avoid talking about my feelings, thinking that all it would do is just hurt people. But seeing Shouko change her depressive ways made me want to change mine as well. Seeing Shouko grow into a strong person despite all the suffering and setbacks along the way inspired me to do the same. Shouya is a good person who has done some horrible things in the past, feeling intense regret and guilt for doing so, which is something that really speaks to me. Seeing Shouya struggle with anxiety is something that really hit home as well, as even now I struggle in social situations with people I don't know well. I've been terrified of the past and uncertain about the future, and I've been scared that I might push people away if I'm not careful about what I say before, just like Shouya. Just like Shouya, I know how it feels to be unable to crawl out of that deep, dark hole. But just like Shouya, I continued on, finally reaching the light at the end of the tunnel. Watching this anime and reading this manga helped me get through some really tough times. Times where watching these characters try their hardest to change despite everything that has tried to stop them made me want to change as well. Seeing them both struggle through bullying, mental health, and even suicide, and then finally making it to a better place, made me want to do the same. It helped change my perception entirely on a whole bunch of different stuff. Seeing how Shouko sees the world as someone with a disability and as a victim of bullying made me want to understand people like her even more. Seeing everyone in the story struggle with their own insecurities made me want to reach out to mates to make sure they're okay, and seeing Mieko react how she did when she found out about Shouya's suicide attempt made me cry because I've seen it firsthand. In no way am I saying that this series alone made me instantly cheerful, but at least taught me something about how to live again, in the same way Shouya wanted Shouko to help him. It taught me that no matter what happens, there is no reason to stop trying. These are all things that I and many others have felt about this masterpiece of a series, whether you look at the anime or the manga. A series that truly deserves the rating of a 10 out of 10 in my eyes. A series that has changed my life forever. A series called A Silent Voice. Thanks for making it this far into the video. I really do appreciate everyone for watching, whether you watched it for 5 minutes, whether you watched it for fucking 2 milliseconds and decided there's no Subway Surfers clip so I can't watch this. Just thanks. I appreciate it. If you want to see me cover a series you personally really enjoy or anything like a game or book, whatever, just let me know in the comments below. Thanks again for watching and I'll see you in the next video. Cheers.